Namaskar, viewers and listeners of the Great Game Reloaded. I am Tilak Devasher. In the last 6 months, Pak Army Chief Asim Munir has made several speeches threatening India, indicating that he is becoming desperate. The reason? His extension. Munir's term as Army Chief ends in November 2025. For months, it was assumed that he would get an extension, with the only question being whether it would be for 2 years or 5 years. But lately, that extension doesn't seem a done deal. Several generals have started lobbying for the top job. At the same time, Munir faces dissent within the ranks. Over 100 retired officers wrote an open letter accusing him of quote-unquote political engineering, of using the army against civilians and destroying its apolitical image. And key members of the Sharif family, his political patrons, are having second thoughts. The only time politicians have an upper hand over the army is when a new army chief is to be appointed or an incumbent given an extension. So what does Munir do? He turns to the old playbook: blame India, beat the war drums, and try to look tough while deflecting from his own failures. This is what burnishes his credentials and masks the serious failures at home. It is how every Pakistani general consolidates power. Let's unpack this. The first speech was in April in Islamabad to the Pak diaspora that had flown in from different parts of the world, primarily the West. He gave a communal speech about Islam and Hindu India, about the two-nation theory and Kashmir being Pakistan's jugular. At a time when Pakistan ranks second worst globally on the Global Terrorism Index, Munir claimed that there was only quote-unquote a little bit of terrorism in Balochistan. Prominent Pakistani politicians have acknowledged that large parts of Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa are effectively outside government control. A week later, he presided over the Pahalgam massacre, believing that India would not respond, and even if it did, it would unify a polarized country faced with a polycrisis. His next speech was in June in Washington, after his lunch with President Trump. He addressed two select groups, one comprising Pakistani American professionals and the other of US scholars and journalists. Here he let slip his long-term plan. He hinted that he hoped to bring political and diplomatic stability to Pakistan, quote-unquote, before I leave, adding with a smile that this could happen by 2035. Think about that. He expects to be around till 2035 at least, while people are wondering about his extension in 2025. India had to figure somewhere. Not surprisingly, he highlighted, quote, the destabilizing role India has played in the region, unquote, accusing New Delhi of supporting proxy groups to foment unrest inside Pakistan. Then came Brussels. Again, addressing the diaspora, he said, and I quote, India is actively funding and supporting banned outfits like the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan (TTP) and the Balochistan Liberation Army (BLA) to destabilize our country, unquote. For good measure, he warned that Pakistan would not allow its, quote, peace and sovereignty to be destroyed, unquote. He further accused India of radicalism and threatened retaliation, declaring, quote, it is my duty to avenge the blood of every Pakistani, unquote. All the accusations of New Delhi funding terrorism inside Pakistan were made without any shred of proof. The most comical thing he said was, and I quote, let it be clear, Pakistan is a peaceful nation, but we will not allow anyone to destroy our peace, unquote. Pakistan and peaceful? The rhetoric would be amusing were it not tragic. While Munir dreams of consolidating his own hold on Pakistan, Pakistan continues to bleed from terrorism. According to the Global Terrorism Index 2025, quoted earlier, terrorism-related deaths surged by 45%, rising from 748 in 2023 to 1,081 in 2024, marking one of the steepest global increases. Last year was Pakistan's deadliest in a decade. 685 security personnel killed in 444 attacks. That is 57 per month. Imagine 57 security personnel being killed every month. Then it was back to the US, this time Tampa, Florida, in August 2025. It was supposed to be a quiet, ceremonial visit to attend the change of command at the US Central Command, CENTCOM. But there was another unpublicized event, a private dinner with about 120 members of the Pakistani diaspora. No phones, no recordings, no leaks. Except there were leaks, and what came out was explosive. Quote, "If Pakistan goes down, we will take half the world down with us," unquote, Munir threatened. A nuclear threat issued not from a war zone, not from GHQ Rawalpindi, but from American soil. This is the first time in modern history that a nuclear threat was issued from US soil by a foreign general, a general who controls his country's nuclear arsenal. And it happened on the 80th anniversary of the US bombing of Nagasaki. Why make these threats in the United States? Some say Munir was emboldened by his recent meeting with Donald Trump at the White House in June. Munir seems to have taken that as a green light. Munir also said, and I quote again, "We will wait for India to build a dam and then destroy it with 10 missiles," unquote. He was talking about the Indus Waters Treaty. He accused India of starving Pakistan by using waters from the Indus, Jhelum and Chenab rivers, a claim that is both scientifically and legally false. India's projects are run-of-the-river hydroelectric plants, not storage dams. They don't stop Pakistan's water. But logic isn't Munir's strong suit. Theatrics are. Imagine this, the army chief of a nuclear-armed state threatening to bomb civilian infrastructure in peacetime from US territory. And if those dams were destroyed, where does the water go? Downstream, into Pakistan. So who would flood whom? Then he warned, quote, "We will start from India's east, where they have located their most valuable resources, and then move westwards," unquote. Pakistan has no land border with India in the east. So what Munir was implying was to use the territory of Bangladesh for their nefarious designs against India. Then came the Kakul speech in October with Munir in uniform. Quote, "There is no space for war in a nuclearized environment," unquote, he said, and then added, quote, "But even a minor provocation will invite a decisive, beyond proportions response," unquote. That's a contradiction wrapped in a threat. But then, intellect hasn't been Munir's strong suit either. Munir warned India that Pakistan's weapons could shatter the misconceived immunity of India's geographic vastness. He promised, quote, "retributive military and economic losses," unquote, far beyond India's imagination. He also let slip, and I quote again, "The battle-hardened army of Pakistan has successfully displayed its strength in both the sub-conventional and conventional domains." In boasting about the army, Munir admitted Pakistan's role in using terrorism. These are not the words of a rational leader. They are the words of a cornered man, desperately projecting strength. At a time when Pakistan is bombing Afghan border villages and losing soldiers to the Taliban and the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, Munir wants to look like a strong man. The irony? He is threatening India while fighting Afghans. Opening a two-front situation is the worst of all military tactics. But then Munir hasn't been a fighting general, more of a manipulator, a backroom boy. Why is this important? After all, this is just another Pakistani general making threats. Why should the world care? Because these aren't offhand remarks. These were prepared speeches made by a man who controls nuclear weapons. It tells us three things. Pakistan's nuclear command is not stable. Its generals treat nukes as tools of rhetoric, of war fighting, not deterrence. Then, the military's grip on politics is total. Munir openly said, quote, "Politics is too serious to be left to politicians," unquote, a remark he made to the diaspora. That's not an off-the-cuff remark. It is declaration of control. Finally, Pakistan's leadership is dangerously delusional. It is using nuclear weapons and conspiracy theories as instruments of domestic politics. So what does all this mean? When a general threatens nuclear war, warns about using missiles, and talks about running politics, it is not just a warning, it's an X-ray of Pakistan's mindset. A mindset that is armed, unrestrained, and unstable. Pakistan's generals have always believed that chaos and irrationality is leverage. But Asim Munir may have overplayed his hand. You can threaten India, you can flatter America, you can sell fantasies about minerals and power, but you can't hide the truth. Pakistan is crumbling. Munir is dealing with a collapsing economy, record inflation, and a resurgence of terrorism. Hundreds of soldiers killed in a single year, and unrest in Pakistan's heartland, the Punjab, with the Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan's pro-Palestine protest being literally mowed down by bullets and casualties running into hundreds. Yes, hundreds. And on top of that, rampant insurgency in Balochistan, an angry Pashtun belt, and an opposition that refuses to go away. Imran Khan may be in jail, but his supporters are unrelenting. Munir's crackdown on them has drawn criticism from retired officers and human rights groups. So how do you silence dissent in Pakistan? How do you convince the government to give you an extension? Not by talking about food prices, but by talking about India. This is Pakistan's tried and tested formula. When the domestic pressure mounts, the generals turn east. Munir is deliberately deploying a tougher anti-India line to shore up his authority. He has to look decisive, strong, unshakable. That's why he is trying so hard to blame India. But however hard Munir tries to scapegoat India, he cannot mask the reality of what is happening in Pakistan. That is the real story of Pakistan today. But in all this, a remarkable and unexpected element emerges. Munir's admiration for India. In Tampa, he compared India to a Mercedes on a highway and Pakistan to a dump truck. Then, at Kakul, he talked about India's geographical vastness. If irony had a capital, it would be Rawalpindi. The bottom line is that Munir's nuclear posturing, anti-India and anti-Hindu pitch, and his political maneuvering are all part of one game: survival. What is dangerous is that he is getting increasingly desperate, and in trying to secure his extension, he may do something perilous. I am Tilak Devasher. Thank you for watching. Do like, share and comment. Namaskar and Jai Hind.